I like how easy it is to deploy Cloud Run services. But what about security, JK?
Well, many guides and videos only talk about how to get Hello World working, Martin. But in a production service, it's important to set the right access privileges. Let me show you how.
Welcome to the show again, JK.
Happy to be back, Martin.
So, JK, you worked with cloud computing across banking, insurance, technology, and mining. And you worked on systems that receive 2 requests per day and on systems that receive 2 billion requests per day.
Hey, Martin, yeah, that's right.
So you mentioned privileges and security before. How do they work in Cloud Run?
There are 2 types of privileges, Martin. The first one is what can trigger the Cloud Run service. And the second one is what can the Cloud Run service do when it does run?
And there are some good materials on how to deal with item 1, who is allowed to trigger the service. And I will add links to them in the video description.
That's right. But developers often forget about item number 2. There's the default setting, which is a new Cloud Run service will use when it gets created, and that uses the default compute engine account. And that default account can create or destroy virtual machines, can create and destroy databases, and it has wide-ranging permissions.
Why is that a problem?
Well, there's 3 reasons for that. The first is that malicious code, potentially from one of your dependencies, can cause trouble in your account if you don't fully understand how it works or where it's come from. And the second one is mistakes by your developers can cause damage. For example, you might be accidentally deleting production data. And the third is compromised services can allow malicious actors to create virtual machines or other high-cost activities to do unscrupulous things like mine Bitcoin or create distributed denial of service attacks or something like that.
Ah, right. Yep, we don't want that. And for item number 2, mistakes by developers, I've deleted production databases at not 1, but at 2 companies I worked at in the past. It was very unpleasant. I would not recommend it. But if there had been safeguards in place when I worked there, my mistakes would not have wiped out any production data.
Well, yeah, people make mistakes, Martin, but we can help. We can help that by preventing what damage can be done by analyzing the Google Cloud APIs that your service uses, and then only granted access to use those specific APIs.
Can you show us an example?
Of course. So here we have a Cloud Run service that reads and writes to a Firestore database. If I hit the URL in my browser, the response has data from Firestore. But it should only have access to do that, and it shouldn't connect to a Cloud SQL database or run queries in BigQuery, destroy virtual machines, and so on.
Makes sense.
So here's how we do it. We create a service account for the Cloud Run service. We create a new role with the minimum permissions required, and we grant the role to that service account.
And why did you create a new role? You could also have given a predefined role to your service account, like Firestore Editor.
That's right. You can use predefined roles, but we want to make sure that the service has just the permissions to do exactly what it needs. So predefined roles are great if we can find one that's managed by Google that has all the roles that we need. But often predefined roles can cause damage if they've got too many permissions, or if they don't have enough permissions, the service can't do the role that it needs. So in this case, there was no predefined role that I needed that had the exact permissions that I wanted. So in the Firestore example, my service should be able to read and write, but not delete. And the predefined role included the delete permission, which we didn't want. So in this way, by creating a new role, we've granted the service account the principle of least privilege to do just the job that it needs to do and nothing else.
Got it.
So we can start by creating the service account. In the Cloud Console, let's go to the Cloud Run service. What we can do then is click and edit and deploy a new version. And then in the security section, under service account, you can click create a new service account. So here I can give the service account a name, but just not any privileges yet. And I'll click create. My Cloud Run service now runs as this service account, but with the privileges of that account.
But the service account doesn't have any privileges, right?
That's right, Martin. There's no privileges at all. So if we were to run it, nothing would work. We would get an error message. So if I click the URL, you'll see, yep, here we go, we got an error message. And that's because the service account doesn't have the privileges that it needs to access the Firestore database.
How do we fix that?
Well, now it's time for item number 2. Let's create a new role with the minimum permissions required. I'll go to the web console and click IAM and roles. Click on Create Role from the top menu. And then on the menu that appears, I will call the role, let's go with Firestore Read Writer. I'll add a new description. It's not required, but I recommend it because when you have a lot of them, it's hard to make sense of which one does what. We can add an ID and select a launch stage. You can leave the launch state as the default if you want to, or you can select general availability. The launch stage is just informational.
Very good.
And then now it's time to assign the permissions. On the Create Role screen, select Add Permissions. In the filter, type in datastore.entities, and that will filter down all of the available permissions in the Google Cloud console down to the Firestore permissions that we're looking for. In this case, we want to allow our API to only have permission to read and write, but not delete records in our Firestore database. So I'll add those permissions in now. Then we click Add. Then, back on the Create Role screen, click on Create, and this will create our custom role.
So now there is a role in your project, but no service account is using that role yet, right?
That's right. And now it's time for item number 3. Come on down. Grant the role to the service account. Under Identity and Access Management Admin, click on IAM.
And now your Cloud Run service should work properly.
Yeah, let's give it a shot. Okay. Looks like the service is working and we can see records from the Firestore database.
Very nice. Now, how should I name roles and service accounts if I have a lot of them?
Well, that's a great question. Naming things is really hard as a developer. But luckily for us, the Google Cloud Security team have put together a Cloud Security Foundation guide, which we can link in the comments, that will have information about how we can name things at scale. It includes naming conventions about how to name networks and VPCs, for example, and then also things like folders, service account roles that we've discussed in this video.
Great, good idea. Yeah, I'll link to that to the foundation guide. So now I know what to name all these things. How would I create roles and service accounts and Cloud Run services at scale?
Yeah, as we've gone through in the console, clicking through and creating a role and then assigning it to a service account is fine if you're doing maybe 2 or 3, but it can get tedious after a lot of them. And that's where tools such as Terraform, which is an infrastructure as code tool, can really shine here. And you can create multiple service accounts, multiple roles through code. And code allows you obviously to create things like loops and iteration, so you can do multiple at a very fast rate. And additionally, with Terraform modules, you can create a module if you're, say, for example, the platform administrator in your organization for Google Cloud. And then other teams can consume those modules to create services, such as Cloud Run, in a consistent way that's conforming to your organizational policies and requirements.
All right, I'll link to that in the description. Thanks for showing us all this, JK.
No worries, Martin. Thanks for having me.
And thank you, everyone, for watching. If you have any questions for JK or me, please add them in the comment section. Also, let me know if there are any other serverless topics you'd like to hear about in future episodes. I read every single comment. Until next time!